At a time of great crisis, in the boardrooms of Hollywood, the legends foretell the development executives will return to Reboot It!
Holy shit, we're back, baby! Welcome back to Reboot It!
Yeah, buddy.
Has anything happened since we last did an episode?
I don't think so.
No, I think everything's completely normal.
Well, I will say, right off the bat, any rumors that you may have heard that John Peters is dead, and, I don't know if you're hearing them or not, but if you have heard them, we're here to tell you it's not true. He's actually in the Cayman Islands. I mean, it started when the COVID restrictions were on, and this guy's telling us he wants to take half his fortune in cash and move to the Cayman Islands under an assumed identity. After all that rigmarole, we finally found ourselves a new development executive gig, and not a second too soon, because as you may or may not have heard, Hollywood is in trouble. And just like Dochi says, they need us. So, ladies and gentlemen, follow along with us as we start our first conference call with our brand new boss.
All right, you guys, welcome to the brain trust of Warner Brothers, whatever we're calling the company. It's going to end up on Amazon, I'm sure, eventually, whatever programming we're doing.
It's not wrong.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm excited because we're the only company in town hiring right now because, frankly, we need to make more revenue. And that's the name of the game. And to that end, I am spending aggressively. I have invested in the rights to one of the all-time great franchises in Hollywood history. When I say that, I mean I have invested in the rights to one specific sequel.
I don't know if
Okay, well, we can make that work. It's happened before.
Yeah, we're here to work for you.
Well, that's good to hear, because if you guys can't make this one work, then I don't think you can make anything work. So, frankly, this works or you're fired. And gentlemen, what I brought you here today, this whale that I've hooked, I have optioned the rights from my frenemies at Disney for Star Wars.
Really?
Whoa.
Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And only that. Only episode 3.
So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all those have to stay the same?
That is exactly right. What I've done here is for a 6-month window in 2029, Max is going to have the exclusive streaming rights to episodes 1 through 9 stands 3.
Okay.
And what that means is you guys are going to have to come up with a medium budget expanded edition of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
We're gonna shoot it, probably in Romania. We're gonna cast it with all new actors, but, we're gonna play it as if it's all the same people. But frankly, if we can cut a deal with some of those people, we'll figure it out. Eventually we'll figure it out. But for now, I need you guys to pitch me the definitive version of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Wow.
Okay.
Any monkey with a typewriter should be able to fulfill that need. You guys are my monkeys. Good luck. I'll check in with you later.
Okay.
I don't like this one at all. I'm just going to say it. Don't like it.
This is something very different to what we usually do when we reboot. So we are fitting in a reboot into the middle of an established continuity. We're not doing a prequel. We're not doing a requel. We're not doing a pre-reboot. We're literally just rebooting the middle chapter of a giant saga.
And so, wait, we do need to recast it?
I don't know. I assume we'll run our ideas past him and we'll figure out what he thinks.
Well, you know,
Okay.
now with AI, they can reanimate anybody and get anybody to come back and do whatever.
Look,
They got James
they-
Earl Jones' voice. They got Samuel L. Jackson's motherfucker on tape.
They got Ewan and Hayden back for Obi-Wan and made it work. So
Yeah, so we could probably
I
get
mean,
them
this is
back.
where we land.
Maybe we pitch him Hollywood's first fully AI generated movie so we get everybody back in their right ages.
That's Ed's favorite idea that you've ever pitched.
Yeah, Ed.
Stop the episode.
Yeah.
I am not
Peaked.
going to. I'm not going to do like Jesus at the money changers table and just flip this whole thing over. No, it is a thing. They do have the rights to all these people. They do have the likeness rights to a lot of these people. You might have to cut deals with some of the people. Some people are still alive. You could cast them, give them their money, give them their flowers.
Guys. This movie came out in 2005. This was 20 years ago. Nobody, it was like 79 when it came out. Everyone is alive.
We're getting
Everyone
Dooku
is
back.
fine.
We're getting
Everyone
Dooku
is-
back.
Oh, except Dooku. I'll give you that. Dooku.
We're getting Dooku back, baby. We're bringing
Maybe I don't want to get ahead of you, Bill, but maybe the easiest thing to talk about is like the things that we have to follow and where it has to end up.
I mean, this could not be coming at a more appropriate time. And as we always do on Reboot It, we'll start with a little bit of an overview of the franchise that we're talking about. If somehow you've been under a rock, Andor is now kind of tying up the loose ends, bridging us from the prequels to the original trilogy, filling in the actual seeds of the rebellion that we see come to fruition in episode 4. I mean, I don't even know how much information I really need to give the audience. Everybody knows Star Wars. The original 3 episodes were episodes 4, 5, and 6. The original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Then 20 years after Return of the Jedi, George Lucas finally comes back and gives us the prequels, the story of Anakin Skywalker's rise and fall to Darth Vader. Episode 1 sees the inimitable Jake Lloyd as the 9-year-old Anakin Skywalker to Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor, and Obi-Wan's mentor, Qui-Gon Jinn, played by Liam Neeson, with Natalie Portman giving us Padme Amidala, the mother to Luke and Leia. So I guess we're picking up then with episode 2, Attack of the Clones, in which, and I don't know how granular we're going to end up getting, but just to give the broad strokes, that then picks up 10 years after the Phantom Menace, episode 1, where Anakin Skywalker is now a full-fledged Padawan training under Obi-Wan Kenobi, now played by Hayden Christensen. Obi-Wan Kenobi still played by Ewan McGregor. And a clone army is being assembled by the Republic under mysterious circumstances. We learn that the clone army is based on the genetic template of Boba Fett's dad, Jango Fett. Count Dooku is leading a separatist movement. Consider him the Robert E. Lee of this story, where people are breaking off from the Galactic Federation. I forget what they called it, but leaving the Senate to go and join Count Dooku's uprising. And essentially the Jedis have been tasked to try to put this down, but as the viewers, we all know that this is a big put on by Darth Sidious, who's engineering the whole thing in order to seize absolute power in a move befitting of Caesar. And George Lucas, really likes to liken his work on the prequels to something akin to a great Greco-Roman operatic tragedy. In the meantime, Anakin and Padme are falling in love, even as Padme is clinging desperately to the last vestiges of the Republic before the Chancellor takes over. Who do we even know at this point if he and Palpatine are the same person? I mean, I guess we know, but does anybody else know?
No,
Nope.
Even the audience, it's never fully comes out until that scene in Revenge of the Sith, the old version now, I should say.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll have to tackle. But basically, that's where we're picking up. At the end of Attack of the Clones, Count Dooku is not defeated. He escapes, cuts off Anakin Skywalker's hand. So we're picking up with his whole arm. We're picking up with the first hints of the cyborg to come with Anakin Skywalker. He and Padme are now married. And the Clone War has officially begun. And I guess maybe this is the first thing to talk about. Is the cartoon still canon? Is that what we should assume?
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
it's tough because that assumes, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, there's like two major takeaways of the Clone Wars cartoon, which is Anakin had his own apprentice, which was Ahsoka, which they've now really brought into the mainstream with Rosario Dawson's show.
Yeah.
And two, like the clones kind of start to develop their own personalities. So I guess really like the only major canon thing that we would have to like include if we decide those are canon is like Ahsoka.
Which actually that could be an improvement, frankly. Because the story ends up feeling, I don't know, for me anyway, the story between episodes 2 and 3 as they are now ends up feeling very smeared. It feels like it's all just a fat middle of sort of Anakin and Padme falling in love and Obi-Wan realizing, something stinks in the halls of the Republic, but like there's a whole lot of nonsense signifying nothing up until the point where Order 66 is given. And frankly, like we don't even have to do that in our version if we don't want to. But I guess maybe that's where I'll start. Do any of you guys feel like you have deal breakers, or is it just, hey, we got to somehow get ourselves to Rogue One or Season 1?
I think that's what I was saying. It's like what you have to do is somehow the Jedi have to die. Somehow Anakin has to turn to the dark side and join Palpatine. Somehow the twins have to be born, and somehow they have to be kept a secret from Anakin because he doesn't even find out that he has a daughter until like Return of the Jedi, like in that fight scene. Right. So all those have to stay. Did I say all the Jedi have to die, or
you did? You did.
Yeah, all those have to go. So within those boundaries, like those things still have to happen, but I do think like there are some threads that they dangle in episode 2 that I feel like don't truly get paid off, or at least we could jump off of. But if you're talking about deal breakers, the one thing, and Ron and I talked about this a long time ago on my show, there's and I know you guys aren't going to agree with me, but the big thing about all of this that George Lucas kept saying over and over and over is like, I wanted it so when you see Vader come out in episode 4, you feel bad for this guy that he's, oh man, what a tragedy. He's stuck in this tin can and just hating life. And it's like, I don't feel bad for a child murderer at all. And I don't care what you do at the end of Return of the Jedi. I still think you're terrible and beyond redemption. So like I have my own headcanon of like how I can enjoy Revenge of the Sith and get around the child killing, because in my head he doesn't do it. He just stands there while clones do it.
Although to be fair,
I just don't want that.
To be fair, he is still a Sand People murderer at this point, because that happens in Attack of the Clones.
So that's one of the dangles that I'm saying they leave. It's like killing off all those people. It only ever gets mentioned one time in Revenge of the Sith. He's like, remember when you did that one thing and you were mad? Like, yeah. So it's like you could literally like, what would happen if the Jedi found out about that? And the other plot thread is the marriage. Like that marriage is a huge deal, and they spend the whole second movie saying like, we can't do this because like I'll get in massive trouble. And then like they hide it in Revenge of the Sith, but it's like, well, how stupid would you, like, even Obi-Wan clearly knows they're together. He goes to her house when he can't find Anakin. So I'm almost like, shit, what if you just start episode 3 and he's like on getting court-martialed by the Jedi and kick him out of the Jedi like at the very beginning or something, you know?
It does feel like that deserves some bigger response. Before we all start pitching, I want to get Ed's take, because it's well known around these parts, if you're an old watcher, that Ron and Billy are big fans. I'm fairly agnostic when it comes to the Star Wars mythos, but Ed can be a little bit hostile. And so, Ed, what are your thoughts on the prospect of diving into this rebooted episode 3?
You know, I have looked at the way what this story sets up for the next movies and how pivotal it is. And I really think we could just improve some of the moving parts and some of the whys that things are happening. We know what's going to happen, but I think some of the whys and how it's executed, I think we could really help this movie out. And I say that on my couch in a 1-bedroom apartment. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's not serious, okay? But Zaslav wants us to do something that would be viable in that tiny market that he's given us. So let's do it. Let's bolster this story. Let's come at it with a good attitude. I'm talking to myself. I'm coaching myself up because
That's nice.
I want us to, yes, drop Vader off in a messed up place. But I want if I just had one peeve that I'm going to keep throwing in there, it's like Amidala doing something in this one besides, like, you know what I'm saying? Like she was doing stuff in the other ones, and then this one she just sort of chills out. And I know she's preggo and everything, but you know, there's been a lot of pregnant revolutionaries in this world. They've done all kind of kick-ass shit. So let's have her do a little bit of that as all the Jedi die and all this bad stuff happens. She needs to be more integral to the drama, I would feel.
She's a little out of character in Revenge of the Sith only because Attack of the Clones, I think, like the push-pull with Anakin about there's some differences in philosophy about how, you know, politics and whatnot. So it seems strange to me that she has no opinion on what Anakin does in Revenge of the Sith. It's just pure flight mode, you know?
Right. I just think
Ron,
it betrays Organa.
Fair enough. So, Ron, I'm going to go to you now. Kick us off with some pitches. What are some things that you might want to see in this new episode 3?
Well, first off, I think Anakin kills all the Jedi.
Damn. All of them?
I think he, I mean, it's just something that popped into my head earlier when I don't think because you think about like the clone troopers doing it. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Like Yoda wasted them like in a millisecond. Like, but you know who could kill them? The chosen one who's gone to the dark side.
It's sort of an
I think we should
amazing
have
put
him.
over.
Yeah,
And I think we should
his
have
boy
him go to the dark side early, and or maybe not early, but like we've talked about this before. I think we got to build it so that when he gets to the dark side, it sort of makes sense, and then we could decide what to do at that point. But like, I think Anakin killing it. We don't have to stick to this, by the way. This is just something that popped into my head earlier, and it also, I think, like, sets a tone for how badass he is.
I would agree with that. I mean, as someone who was just never like drinking the Kool-Aid of Star Wars, I always felt like Darth Vader did not live up to his own legend. And I feel like if we're going to be retooling this, I would love to see us put him over in a way that really makes it scary when he does show up, whether it's in Rogue One or whether it's in A New Hope. Because while I sympathize with George Lucas's desire for us to see him as some sort of a tragic character, like trapped in his metal shell, I also think that like you need to see someone whose mind has been fully broken to fascism. Like he needs to have bought in. Otherwise, why would he be so cavalier about like, yeah, we're going to build this Death Star and we're going to kill your planet? Who gives a crap?
And here's another crazy thing.
Yeah.
What if, no, I don't know. What if Amidala is actually like, there's a split in inside of the actual, like the beginning of the rebellion is really Amidala fighting Anakin's side. And maybe you don't know it's Anakin at this point. Maybe you see him as some other Darth or something like that, but she's trying to protect Jedi. I don't know. Where are you guys at?
Oh, that's interesting. Her protecting, like a underground railroad for Jedi almost. If her husband is the one that's murking them all, that's
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and that I never thought I'd hear that sentence, but yeah, it's pretty good. And I also think the jazz about I'm really I was just holding my excitement as you talked about Anakin killing all the Jedi, because that it's beautiful. It's like super fucking necessary, bro. And I think what we could do is just orchestrate the whole thing of like it starts with a series of like him coming back from war and he's all fucked up, and he had that first mission where him and Obi-Wan Kenobi are trying to recapture the Chancellor, who's like tied up, but he's like tied to the trade tracks he tied himself to, playing this thing out so that he could turn Anakin. He like set up that whole situation at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith so that Anakin could like so that he could engineer a situation where Obi-Wan Kenobi would die. He keeps saying stuff like, "Hey, leave him. We can get the fuck out of here." As the ship is exploding, he wanted the engineer situation where Homeboy killed Count Dooku, did something super bad, uncomebackable, and then leave Obi-Wan Kenobi to die. I think that if we open on some mission like that, but put Amidala in there, put some other characters in there and make it more interesting than just some assholes fighting robots for 15 minutes. I think that could be really cool.
Yes. And I've always felt like the thing about the Clone Wars that doesn't quite sit right with me is that they shouldn't really be a war. And I don't, what I mean by that is like everything I saw in episodes 1 and 2 led me to believe that like the clone army is just a Gestapo. There isn't really an other side of this war. Like Dooku and his separatist worlds are something that the Chancellor was just setting up to take the fall for his power grab. So like, I almost feel like this third movie should focus on like the Clone Wars should essentially be over at that point because it was never a real war to begin with. Like if anything, and I don't want to make this too political, but like the Clone Wars should feel a little bit like ICE going around and just rounding people up under suspicion of being, you know, separatist sympathizers, because there isn't really another army that they're fighting.
Okay. So here's an interesting idea. So as they're going through this thing where they're saving the Chancellor, it appears that the Chancellor sets up that people within the Senate are the ones who got him kidnapped because they've joined the separatist movement, and then he gets the power literally the beginning of the movie. After that rescue, he gets his full powers, and then the Gestapo stuff starts happening. But here's the thing.
Do we even need to see that though?
No, we don't. I guess we don't. But I also just want to. So we do have to see Anakin start to move towards being cool with it, though, right? Like, we do want to see him, like, okay, so something where we see I don't know, a weird amount of peace because of them taking advantage of all this power, so that Anakin sees that there's less fighting happening. Maybe he even gets to spend some time with Amidala on like a non-violent, doesn't even have to be secret. I don't know, something along those lines where we get to see.
Well, I like, so what I like about that, Ron, is the idea that Anakin's world, like his small little personal world, is great. Despite what's happening to anybody else, It's like me and Amidala can live happily ever after. And then going back to what Billy said, maybe that is a good place to start, is like he's getting punished for living happily ever after, essentially. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I was talking about. Is about the series of microaggressions from these fools. It's like, okay, we got to break this marriage jazz up. It's ruining this, that, the other. Oh, well, we'll just run away and go over here. Well, you can't do that because XYZ. Next thing you know, you're in a Jedi fight. Maybe somebody dies. Different shit happens, And
I guess what I'm saying is like, if his argument, if they're holding a trial where it's like, we are hereby dispelling you from the Jedi Order, and his argument against them is like, you guys are worried about this. Well, there's a war going on out there, and I'm just trying to live my life. And they're all like, I don't know if there's a war going on out there. Like, it just sort of seems like an occupation of a bunch of planets by these foot soldiers. And I mean, to me, it's like, I think that the central conflict is like the Jedi are more concerned with Anakin's personal life, and Anakin is more just like, leave me alone. Like everything's
Okay,
cool
so
with me.
let me yes and that, because
Okay.
I don't feel like that would be enough to tip the scales for him to go over.
But it's a
But
start.
what if there's some mission, and this kind of ties it back to episode 1. What if there's some mission and Anakin's the general that they send him on? It's, you know, I don't know if it's like a probationary or whatever. And it's to take over, I don't know, defeat the separatists there and then come back. But it's a planet full of slaves. And he's like, we're not leaving until we liberate these people. And they're like, no, you know that that's not the mission. We have to get back. He's like, if you hadn't pulled this shit 20 years ago, my mom wouldn't have died. I asked you then if I could go back or if you were here to free the slaves. You said no. Like that is a huge wound that just never ever gets talked about after episode 1, which is like, he's like, are you here to free the slaves? He's like, no, we're not here. It's like, then what the fuck good is a Jedi if you're not even going to come to this planet where you see people in distress, and it's like, you low-key use the Force to just gamble someone away? Like, that would be enough to piss me off. It's like, you can't let me be happy. You can't let anyone else be happy. The Force is something that every living being contributes to, and yet you people seem to be the only ones that want to govern it. So, even though these people that are slaves contribute just as much to the Force, but we can't get them. I feel like something along those lines would be enough to push him towards like, fuck this, you know?
And let's go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, especially if your boy Sheev was down with that for some nefarious reasons. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, I do love Sheev in this movie. I did give it a rewatch, guys. Well, I watched the first part and I got it. I get it. You know what I'm saying? He's like, he plays at things. He sets up situations for Anakin, and he's just pushing him inch by inch, or like a cat knocking a bauble off of a table, you know what I'm saying, throughout the whole movie. And he's engineering these situations, but I just think we could be more blunt with ours. We can just get to it and not have so much sitting around, and again, have more shit for Amidala to do.
I agree with that. I mean, I was going to say almost create that could be your opening scene, right? If they're, you know, the clone army led by Jedi, who are the generals, are storming a planet because the separatists have taken that planet. And Anakin's whole deal is like, all right, we're not, you know, the separatists are kind of a non-threat. Like, they could get rid of them. We literally open, and it's like they're in the middle of killing all these separatists. And Anakin's like, now we're going to go through and kill all the slaveholders and free these slaves. And could be Obi-Wan is like, no, we're not. Like, that's not the mission.
Should be.
Right. And so then Sheev's role, I love that Ed calls him Sheev, is
homeboy Sheev.
in the same way that like the Gladiator opens with the battle against the Germanic tribes, and then the second scene is like Maximus and the Emperor talking. It's like the second scene is Anakin and the Emperor talking, and the Emperor is like, see, this is the problem with the Jedi. They're so focused on the enemy, they don't see the bigger picture. Like, all these worlds need to be liberated from themselves because the system doesn't work. We need to replace it with a better system. I'm with you, Anakin. These guys are too small-minded to understand that we need to replace the whole system of how the galaxy works.
Right, and he's primed to believe that, because even after, I'd say one thing I would like to in some way keep from the original movie is that the scene where he goes up and he's like, okay, we're gonna make you a member of the council, but you're not a master. Like, what the fuck? Really? Like, and he throws a temper tantrum, and then he catches himself and he's like, all right, I'll go sit down and stuff. But he's looking at this long neck dude and this other loser and this puppet in a chair, and he's like, dude, I can't be down with these losers. I can't sit with these cool kids. Get out of here. I've saved my own master 9-10 times. These dudes are assholes. You know what I mean? That
By the way,
yeah.
Just as an aside, just something to put on the side. No one is meaner and more antagonistic to Anakin Skywalker in all three of those movies than Mace Windu.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that we were robbed of Anakin unleashing his anger on the one person who
I had something for that.
Yeah,
Go
he'd been
ahead.
hating. He had been hating.
So this is my idea is at the end when we really start to see Anakin officially come out is when Anakin maybe goes toe to toe with Mace and it's too close a fight, and then either one of these could happen where or Sheev Palpatine goes against Mace and it's too close a fight, and then they both team up to beat him. One gives Samuel L. Jackson the actual kick-ass death that he deserves rather than being blasted out a window. And it gives him overwhelming odds. Two, I think that it's becomes like an official, and this is where I think maybe we see Obi-Wan finally figure out who has been killing the Jedi in that scene, and he escapes to go back later to try to stop him. And then that's just more and more failure for Obi-Wan. Because one of the big things that I always thought was interesting was how he always says, I failed Darth Vader or I failed Anakin.
Yeah.
And you're like, but how? How did you fail him? And I think
Can I
one of
throw
the
out
other
a crazy idea to yes and you, or
yeah.
a kind of like side and you. Look, if we're gonna do a different Revenge of the Sith, here's just a crazy fucking different thing. What if we find out that Mace Windu, because we know in the current canon as it stands, he teeters right on the edge of dark side. That's why he's so powerful, is that he can channel dark side but doesn't fall for it. What if we just go all in on it? What if this whole time Sidious has been using Mace Windu as like a spy, and that's the reason why he's like, don't train this boy, I don't trust this boy. He's sowing dissent into all the Jedi Council, not realizing that's what Palpatine wants, because he wants Anakin to get angry with the Jedi. So it's just like another layer to Palpatine. What if like this whole time Mace Windu was a part of it? Because it just seems strange to me, like how mean he is to Anakin from the get-go. It's like, what if that was intentional? What if Palpatine wanted someone to just be poking Anakin all the time, and sowing seeds of doubt in the Jedi about Anakin, and then it turns out he's just another pawn in Palpatine's game, just to change things up, if nothing else.
I could see Palpatine setting that information, afloat or whatever and shit like that. I could totally see that. As far as Mace being like a sleeper cell, we would just get killed. But I do
by
think
who? By what? By who?
In this world, him
I think
having
by fans.
in this world, him having in a sort of Othello
I don't
again,
think so.
Iago situation, that would be quite good, because you know what, it is true that he has been like prejudicial towards homeboy, and I also think we could put more in there about like even Mace Windu being like, dude, we in a very real sense they had overpraised this kid who had measurables. You know what I'm saying? Anybody who understands sports knows that every now and again somebody comes along, they're this long, they're this tall, they're this fast, they weigh this much, they're this freak athlete, and they don't do a goddamn thing because they don't work hard enough to be a goddamn pro whatever they're doing. They had all the measurables, but they couldn't do it. That very well could have been the case with Anakin. The mistranslation of the so-called Force legend, all this, they just were blowing this kid up so much from the get-go. If I was Mace and I earned all my powers, I would be kind of salty about that naturally. I wouldn't have to have birdies on my shoulder. I'd be like, fuck this guy. He's 17. He got a scar. Wow, you fought some robots. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot of natural reasons why Mace could be like that. And I think we could dramatize them 100% better in this movie, regardless of how we do it.
It just seems like you got to use it somehow. But if he's a Jedi master, he's not going to
fall for some shit that Palpatine.
He's just not. Well, no, the
Jedi are notoriously stupid. Hold on.
No, you're right. That's a good point.
They got shot in the back of this fucking ridiculous turd that we're polishing here.
I didn't say that they would fall for it. No, I'm saying like here's what I'm doing. I'm looking at like what's there already in the text that we can not just do a remix, but it's like, is there anything we can subvert? Well,
no, that's a bold move.
here's
I
one
get it.
aspect is that Mace is just horrible to Anakin the entire time. Is there anything that we can actually use for that? Because again, I think ultimately our goal here is like what made Anakin so angry that killing all the Jedi and turning to the dark side was the 100% right call.
Well,
I think your idea about literally Obi-Wan stopping him from, like, I think they should even have a little bit of a fight. Like,
but and also, why can't Mace real quick? Why can't Mace be involved in that first mission? There's zero reason. There's zero reason.
He could absolutely be there. Yeah,
the fucking Chancellor. If I'm Mace and I'm chilling out with Anakin, and when we get to fight and we doing all our stuff, and Obi-Wan Kenobi gets knocked out, so it's just him and me, and we don't like each other, but we're doing our Jedi stuff, and then some real, make a Sophie's choice. You're going to be evil or not stuff happens, and Anakin chooses poorly in front of him or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like he just sees his kids evil, an Omen moment or something that Mace Windu could literally for real see with his own two eyes.
Can I to yes and that, and to also go back to what Billy was saying about like really subverting things. What if we open this movie with just straight up the end of the Clone Wars? First scene is the last battle of the Clone Wars, like we talked about. Anakin is like, okay, we murdered these separatists. Now it's time to go murder all the slaveholders and freaking essentially revolutionize this planet by force. Mace Windu is the one to be like, motherfucker, we're not doing that. Literally, because it's Samuel L. Jackson. Motherfucker, we're not doing that. And then he has his little sidebar with the Emperor. I mean, scene 3-ish could be the Jedi led by Mace Windu being like, Anakin, you are kicked out of the Jedi Order. Like, and then we take a 10-year jump. And this, what I'm trying to get to is like, we end the Clone Wars, we jump ahead so that we're also getting further in time. So when we get to old Obi-Wan Kenobi being like, oh, I fought with your father in the Clone Wars and it was so long ago, it wasn't like 15 years ago. It was actually like 30 years ago. And in the intervening time, Anakin either starts up some kind of underground thing that the Jedi have to discover and like put down.
Ooh.
And so now it's Anakin versus the Jedi on a real basis, or maybe Anakin and Padme are living their happily ever after, and the Jedi, after having kicked him out, are trying to rope him back into something 10 years down the line. And it's like, I thought you didn't want me. And, and it's just something to like, in those intervening 10 years, also, Palpatine, whether we know it's Sheev or not, has consolidated his grip on power. And now the stormtroopers are everywhere. And all the planets are being run as these, vassal states to the authoritarian regime. I'm just trying to get us to the point where it's like all this battle about the socio-political version of like the galaxy is accelerated past the point of like, we're having war. And then this one guy is there. And then in a snap, it's like suddenly the Empire is all powerful. I feel like we could kill a lot of birds with one stone if it's just end of the Clone Wars, Anakin, you suck, big ass time jump. Now what's the new status quo?
Apocalypse Now.
I mean, you could also like my idea of having some friction between Padme and Anakin because they could be relatively happy, but Padme sees like, what's happening and is like we can't like let this like totalitarian dictatorship happen. There's no freedom. There's no democracies. People are being, secreted away. And I don't know, something along those lines.
Both Padme and Anakin are living kind of secret double lives that they're keeping from each other. And they're actually at odds, despite the fact that like on the surface, they're just living their life,
I mean, that's kind of like there's a whole, I won't get too into it. There's a whole deleted subplot that they took out of Revenge of the Sith, which was exactly that, which was Padme tries to get in to talk to Palpatine, and it's like with a couple other senators, the ones that we know, Mon Mothma, blah, blah, blah. And she puts a big target on her back with Palpatine, and there's a a handful of scenes where they start to plant the seeds of the Rebel Alliance in secret, and she can't even tell Anakin about it because Anakin is like, what are you doing? Doesn't really, and he's got to defend her against Palpatine because Palpatine starts to sway him against her, like, seems like she's got a lot of secrets that even you don't know about. So that was all there. They took it all out to focus more on Anakin turning, although that seems like it took focus off of Anakin turning. So
I was going to say, I think one of the cardinal sins of the current Revenge of the Sith is that it was so focused on like the bond between Anakin and Obi-Wan to the exclusion of anything else. That became sort of like the emotional hook of the movie, which I feel like is a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, because you got a girl right there, weirdos.
well, no,
going on?
That's where the disconnect is, because it's all about like Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
but
man.
his reason for turning is I don't want Padme to die.
Yeah,
so it's like these two things are separated. So it's like I understand what he was going for, which is I didn't do something before and my mom died. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to try to control this. And he ends up doing it himself. I understand that. I would take it out of this version because I just don't feel like that is
agreed.
Like that doesn't bring in the anger towards the Jedi enough, you know?
And I think it's very simple to just keep it on the level of class solidarity. Like Padme is literally royalty. So in Anakin's mind, she doesn't give a shit about the slaves and the dirt people. And that's where he comes from. And that's what he cares about. And so in his mind, the current order as it is sucks and he wants to overthrow it. And in her mind, all she sees is there's an authoritarian despot who is taking over all of the good things that we do in the galaxy. And so it's like they both have a point, but they can't reconcile.
I see one small problem, and that's like, so are Jedi's bad guys in this? Because here's the issue. Like, I know that they do, I guess in the prequels, they do enough dumb shit that maybe that we have to do that. But it just seems crazy that we're just being like, yeah, Jedis are the good guys, but also they're cool with slavery.
Here's yes and no. I think the whole point... The whole point of the prequels was that the Jedi were so rigid in what they felt the Force should be and how it should be governed and what they should do, is that they kind of overlooked the obvious, right? So the whole point is like that they had taken the time to work with Anakin, that attachment that they're like, attachment's forbidden because any attachment is bad. It's like, well, it's that same attachment that Anakin had for his son that ended up ending the whole thing. So I think it's about like the prequels already kind of set up that the Jedi have good intentions, but a lot of their rigidness is what leads to their downfall.
Dogma.
So that DNA is still there, but you're right. Like it's a little hard, you know, when it's just like flat out, no, we can't free slaves. Where in Phantom Menace is kind of like, I wish I could. There's way urgent things that we can't stay here. We have to leave. So they kind of like dance around it.
So maybe we loosen it up a little bit and Anakin just sees something like billionaire class people ruling over people who work and make some money, but not a lot of money. They're all starving. They might as well be slaves, but nobody owns them per se. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm just trying to come up with something where
I think it's real. For me, it's very simple. They go in, like we've been saying, they go in, they do a mission, and at the end of the mission, we see that the people that they were helping out were the bad guys. Full stop. That's it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you know,
and Anakin sees that.
Right. And the Jedi are acting like that's cool because the Jedi aren't there to do any sort of revolution, positive or negative. They're cops. Yeah, they're supposed to be the idealized version of cops. They're supposed to be the idealized version of cops, wherein they're powerful people who will show up and be on the right side of whatever, but leave things at a certain status quo. They're not a revolutionary agent, nor are they. You know what I'm saying?
Which is, by the way, that is Obi-Wan's failure. Is at the end of it, we could just make it obvious. Obi-Wan's failure is not supporting Anakin in helping people who were in trouble.
Well, and I mean, I think more than that, Obi-Wan if Obi-Wan is going to be our representative of the Jedi and the Jedi's failure, the whole idea is like, we do not fight revolutions, right? The Jedi don't fight revolutions. That's his failure. Just taking that position is his failure.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we're getting a phone call here. So I don't know if Zaslav's going to want us to pitch him or what, but let's see what he wants.
Gentlemen, I hope you're doing a good job here with my Star Wars property that I've so geniusly optioned. I've been thinking a lot about this. This needs to tie in to the most popular Star Wars today. And what I mean is, I want Mandalorians, I want baby Groots.
I think you mean baby Grogu's, sir.
Baby Grogu, I mean baby Yoda. I don't care, the baby. Put a baby in the movie. It's very simple. Give me Mandalorians, give me baby something aliens, and I don't know, what else do people like? Give me a role for Daisy Ridley. People seem to really like Daisy Ridley. So we want to tie this all together, right? So put Daisy Ridley in the movie with the Mandalorian and the baby whatever, the green guy.
Mr. Zaslav, I don't think Daisy Ridley's character comes into the story until like 60-ish years after this episode 3, just so you know.
People don't give a shit about timelines. They want to see beautiful faces. Come on. Just make it. She's a clone. She travels through time. I don't give a shit. Just put her in the movie. She's cheap and she's beautiful. I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
You know what? I already got it. I literally already got it. We have to show, obviously, Sheev is part of her family, whatever. So we got to show a relative that looks exactly like her. Boom. In the timeline. So somebody that he could reasonably, because at the end of this, you know what I think? I don't know how we would do that, but the bottom line is, I think we could put in a Sheev relative because she's part of them. Somebody, you know, how you do those photos of somebody, you know, from 70 years ago, and they look exactly like
niece
your
is
uncle.
coming to visit. I mean, whatever.
And like the version of Palpatine in here could have all sorts of emissaries and people.
Well, here's the thing: if we're keeping all the other ones, this might be a chance to actually help out Episode 9 a little bit.
Sure.
We know from other media that Palpatine kind of always knew someone was going to screw him over. So he was already working on like, how do I transfer my consciousness into other bodies? He never quite got the body right, which is why he's so decayed in Episode 9, because nothing could hold his dark side. But we could literally just, you know, see him starting maybe that's why he wants Anakin to, you know, free all these slaves, because he's actually going to take them and use them to experiment on them to get himself more bodies, you know?
God, that is,
and that's the secret clone war that was happening. So I don't know. That's just too much, but I get it. But yeah, that's interesting, dude. I like that.
Okay.
I mean, also, that's a good. If we're gonna have Mace Windu and Amidala in some sort of like the Underground Railroad of it all, working to free people from, the Empire controlled worlds or whatever. I mean, maybe you actually have your Daisy Ridley character being trafficked. That's the wrong word, but being helped from one place to another by Padme and Mace Windu. She's essentially, if you think about Casablanca, it's like she's the young woman with her husband who's desperately trying to get out of Casablanca, that's maybe going to sleep with the major or whatever. It's like just a good 2-3 scene role where she's representative of this larger population of, like, they say they're freeing the slaves, but they're actually doing horrible cloning experiments on us. Help us get out of this world. That's
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it would explain why later on down the road, his son gives birth to a daughter that like they just reverse engineered her genes at some point,
Yeah. It could also, that could also open up avenues for, if we do want to put Grogu or, some version of a baby Yoda, I don't want to do the Alien 4 thing of like we're in a lab and there's you know
Yeah.
clones or failed clones of characters that we know, but it's a possibility.
I mean,
don't know.
look, I mean, Yoda could just be visiting a planet with we've never seen Yoda's planet. Might be fun to go to Yoda's planet for something. I don't fucking know.
I would almost vote like a Grogu-esque character, but not Grogu, because then we get into that weird space of like his origin specifically is very tied into a version of this movie that we're not making.
Yeah.
So then it kind of
Yeah.
muddies the waters, you know?
I mean, I would really love, dude, if we're gonna do, let's get nuts. I think one of the last parts is like, I think people would love to see that Grogu baby about 90 years after that, to where he's like sort of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. You know what I'm saying? He's like, he's a cool guy. He's a real cool dude at this point, and he could talk and stuff, and he could do stuff. I mean, let's get nuts. I think that should be the version that you get, like a little cool guy, Bart Simpson of the Grogu, and just commit to that for a second for a nice little bit, because I think that's cute. Yeah, Grogu. He's got a speeder with
I kinda
flames
like
on the
that.
side. He's like, yeah, but
He's
rocks,
hover
dude.
skateboarding around the Jedi's.
Dude,
You know,
he's fucking, dude. I
put a
know it's,
slingshot in his pocket.
it's pretty poochy, but it rocks, dude. A little bit.
I wonder
Yeah,
if there's something. I wonder if there's something we could do there, though, that would also explain why Yoda ends up in isolation, as opposed to just him being like, "I failed. Now I must go live in a swamp."
Oh yeah, we
Like,
could do a better version of that. We should.
You
do
know what I
that.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, does he
Yeah.
fail? Does he explicitly fail his people? You know, the last survivors of his people, and it is Grogu or whoever. You know, is there a small contingent of them that he's
Honestly,
trying to resettle?
I almost want it to be like somehow he confronts Anakin or something, and he's hiding. He's scared. Like, I think it's almost more interesting if the most powerful Jedi that ever existed, which at that point was Yoda, is going to hide from Anakin. You know, he's not sitting there and wallowing like, oh, I should have done better. He's just like, good God, I hope he never finds me in this planet. You know.
I mean, I
get that the events of our
put over.
movie having that be in his head more than the other. Yeah, I get that.
Well, that's kind of interesting. If somewhere in the middle, you know, in the act 2 of our movie, this whole idea that like the Jedi are going missing and Yoda's also missing, and it turns out he wasn't killed, but he chose to go into hiding because it's like he sees the tea leaves, he sees what's happening, and it's like, I don't have the power to stop this, and I don't have the power to stop you, Anakin. You know.
Well,
That's
yeah,
interesting. And it also, he could also have a very you know, a future thing of somebody who does defeat Anakin, which we know.
Well,
what
I
it
mean,
is.
that's the thing, right? Is like it kind of, if he's hiding because he's scared, first of all, there's that poetic irony of like fear leads to anger and everything, and it's like you're hiding because you are scared ultimately of the boy you said that to. But also too, it might kind of help a little bit with Empire Strikes Back of like why he's so reluctant to train Luke, because like that's kind of fucked up if it's like I'm too scared to do it. But if you want to go face your daddy, you go right on ahead.
I
You
mean,
know,
I agree with that, because I feel like in this movie, maybe you guys would find it repetitive. I don't know, but I think a real put over somewhere in the middle where we're really trying to push Anakin for like Yoda to confront him, and then them to have a little fight, and then Yoda to fucking literally lose and be like, all right, bro. All right, I'll tell you what, motherfucker, I'm gonna come back with my boys. And then later in the movie, he comes back with his boys and they still get their ass kicked. You got kicked out, you got your ass kicked on your own, you got your ass kicked with the homies. There's nothing you could do with this guy. This dude's the John Wick of the Force. Nobody should fuck with him. And then some kid crashes his shit into your swamp years later. You're like,
so
I got my ass kicked twice. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. The only problem we're gonna have, and part of me is like, shit, do you do this earlier in the movie somehow, is you have to reconcile. It's like, but somebody, I mean, it's really got to be Obi-Wan, kicks his ass enough that he's got to go into the suit. So it's like, it can't be he's John Wick, because somebody has to get the better of him to get in
I
that
think
suit.
technically Obi-Wan is just
Yeah, I think Obi-Wan should get the killing blow, but it should take all of them to do it because this guy has killed the Jedi in this continuity that we're talking about. You know,
Yes,
it makes Windu getting a
yes.
good death, everybody getting a good death, people getting a good fight.
But yes, and what if he gets fucked up over a longer span of time? What if it's not one battle that cuts off all of his arms and scars the shit out of him? I mean, if this dude is going off picking off Jedi Masters, it's like, I mean, that could be an interesting thing between him and Padme too. It's like he's gone for a week and he comes back and one of his legs is missing. And it's like, Anakin, I know you're doing some shit. Like, clearly you're doing some shit. And so it's like they become strained in a way that the original movie never had, where it's like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh my God, you're dying. And it's like, this one is more of a realistic, like, Anakin, we could have our happy ever after. You can't let go of the slaves and the Jedi and all this shit that's happening in the universe. And he's like, yeah, bitch, I can't let
Right.
it go.
It's
Right,
a story
I can't let it go.
about not being able to recover from trauma. Like,
Right, but
then-
also using your power when you know that, like, I mean, I'm going dark side over here. Using your power when you know you could make an abject change instead of upholding a status quo you know to be unjust. What is more peaceful? Using your powers to affect change against an unjust system, or sitting on your ass while people get enslaved? What is more just?
Well,
What is more of a great use of the force?
I love that idea of it wasn't just one fight that got him in the suit. It's like
That
a
is great.
combination of things. And I do think, again, we can pull in episode 9 since we're already doing that. And it's like, what if the stronger he gets in the dark side, just like Palpatine's clone bodies can't hold it, and that's why he's so decayed, his body starts to decay, and a lot of those deformities are just coming from like excessive dark side use. To the point where, like, because ultimately, like, my biggest complaint with Rogue One is the part that everybody loves, which is like Darth Vader is just terrifying and so overpowered, and literally A New Hope opens and is supposed to take place like 10 minutes later, and he can like barely walk down the hallway, you know? So it's like, let's get Rogue One Vader in this movie sooner than later. Why just have it for 30 seconds at the end? Like, shit, let's start building Rogue One Vader like halfway through the movie, you know?
Can I posit something else too?
Please.
Maybe it's the whole. So at first, Palpatine wants Anakin to be on his side because he wants another apprentice, right? But what if he gets a little too hot and he starts realizing that Anakin's gonna fucking waste his ass, and so he sets him up to be hitting the hardest guys. Palpatine knows who the best masters are. He sends him after the best masters. So each time he loses a little bit, and so by the time we get him into the suit, he's not able to take on Palpatine in the same way, and that's why the end has to be the end the way it is.
I see what you're saying. Can I counter with the idea that, like, what if if Anakin is out there essentially doing one-man revolutions on planets in the Outer Rim or what have you, and Palpatine is doing nothing? The Jedi might take it upon themselves to be like, even if they don't know that it's Anakin, it's like there is a Force user who is overthrowing entire ruling families or entire political systems or whatever. We need to go and stop that. And all Palpatine has to do is just sit back and go, interesting. Because I don't know, I love that role for Palpatine, that it's like, I'm going to set a bunch of shit in motion, and then I'm just going to watch with a little smile as everything goes the way I want it to. To me, that's the most evil thing to do with Palpatine. And it becomes
right.
You know what I mean? And it becomes this thing where the Jedi are trying to petition him to do something. Like, you know, there's somebody is completely destroying the status quo of the galaxy, planet by planet. And they're like, don't we need to do something? And then Palpatine could turn around and be like, oh, so you want people to continue to have slaves, huh? Oh, you want these unruly planets who don't really agree with how we do things to just have their autonomy and just go about their business? That's not that doesn't sound good to me. And so then that's also fracturing the Senate versus the Jedi, because the Jedi are like, we need to do something. Whereas the dictatorial leader who now has loyalty in the Senate is like, these Jedi are going off the reservation, man. Like, I don't think we have a problem. Our stormtrooper, our clone troopers can more than handle this. And yet these Jedi are deciding to go out and, start these battles that I'm not approving, frankly. And like it again, it's just a way for him to tighten, to get more people on his side. It becomes almost a propaganda thing where it's like the Jedi just won't listen. Like, what the hell?
And just
what
the
if,
hunt,
what
the
if
hunt for the
Obi-Wan
Jedi, he Anakin being a Jedi hunter for fucking Palpatine, basically. I don't know what's wrong with that. That's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying?
But I also want to say, what if Obi-Wan instead actually stays out of it? Because he doesn't want to go after Anakin, and then the real failure is having a conversation with Anakin to try to get him to come back to the light, and he will not do it.
Fair. And to Ed's point, I get what you're saying, Ed. I think we can have our cake and eat it too. Again, on a longer timeline. If we open the way we talked about previously, we jump ahead, even if it's not 10 years, it's a couple of years. And now the new status quo is like, oh, we're in peacetime. And Palpatine is still the emperor, and the Jedi are like, this guy should maybe not be the emperor, which is already creating some tensions. But then meanwhile, Anakin's out there going on secret missions to go and slaughter the ruling class on various planets. And it starts with Jedi trying to stop him and him killing them. And then the Jedi are going, holy shit, there's something really wrong here. And meanwhile, Palpatine's just going, these fucking Jedi. And then eventually Palpatine, we could have the big reveal where Anakin is working with Palpatine because Palpatine is he's in his ear telling him like, yeah, go free the planets, man. Go free the planets. I'm not going to stop you. And then Palpatine can be like, listen, the Jedi are going to keep coming and I don't know how to stop them. Maybe you can. You know what I mean? Like, I know what you're doing. You're just trying to free planets and give the people a chance. But the Jedi, I can't stop them. They're going to keep coming for you. You might want to do something about that. And then it's like, okay, give me some information. Where can I go and find, where can I go after this Jedi and this Jedi? And Anakin already knows the power structure because he worked with them for so long. So it's like he could even come up with his own target list.
Yeah, and also Palpatine still having one of the problems with the Jedi, and I don't want to just ape the regular movie, but one of the problems with the Jedi where they were so beholden to this sort of war effort that you could reasonably know where they were going to be because they were on some mission with a bunch of clone assholes to get shot in the back by. So it's like a modified version of that sort of intel. You know where they're moving because you have all these spies and stuff. And like you're saying, that's that part. Them trying to divest themselves from the Empire, but rather the Republic at this point, which is going to become the Empire. Them trying to divest themselves from it. They're still going to know their whereabouts. They're still going to have spies and people who have been around them the whole time. I think that would be so better than just the clones, like them having like real spies to like somebody tries to slit your throat and you barely survive it and you stumble out bleeding and you light your lightsaber and Anakin is right there glowing with super energy and it's like, oh man, how am I supposed to win this one? You know what I mean? Because a better version, a longer John Wickian version of the Order.
But I think that conversation you just said, Bill, is also a good gateway into I think we have to be somewhat explicit in that Anakin rejects the Jedi, joins the Sith, and becomes Palpatine's apprentice. And I think the way that the novel handles it is so much different than the film, and it was so much better of like, why would you? Because Palpatine has this conversation of like, why would you kill me just because we don't believe the same things? I don't want to kill you. You're like my best friend. So I think I think Palpatine can come out of a way of like, I can give you more powers to take these people out if you join the dark side, because the dark side is not what you think it is. Like, look at the light. Look at what the Jedi are not doing. You call that Sith and Jedi do not necessarily equal morality of good or bad. You know what I mean? Like that, I think you still have to have that philosophical conversation.
what if he just reframes it for Anakin as like, the dark side is change, the light side is status quo,
Right.
right? Like
Stagnant. Right.
is perpetuating the same systems that have been in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Anything like that I like, because
God
it harkens
damn, man.
back to this idea.
This is like what we're going through
Yeah.
right now.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think
no,
there's a reason
yeah.
why we're doing this.
Yeah,
like-
dude, like yeah, they put your ass in a trick bag with that light side, because with the light side, you can never be deadly enough. You can never be pervasive enough. You can never be insidious enough.
And you got to be kind.
To get into the places you need to get to actually seize power, you have to always be on the outside, playing by the rules, Kingsbury boxing rules, and that's why the Jedi lose. They're not,
But
unwilling.
ultimately, it does have to be a, like, you know, obviously we're not sitting down and writing the script right now, but it does have to be presented in a way where, to Anakin, that sounds right. But we need to know that ultimately, at the end of all of this, the dark side is bad. Like,
Well,
we
the dark
need
side
to
is
head to
about
the light,
control.
you know?
But I
Right.
think that
So-
that's where you use the Obi-Wan character, which is what we were saying previously, is like Obi-Wan becomes sort of our point of view character for the Jedi, where Palpatine is the point of view character for the Sith. And if Palpatine is saying, you know, dark side is change, light side is stagnation, in Obi-Wan's mind, it's like light side is tradition and respect, and dark side is just going for power. Like, all you want is power, power, power. But the very last lesson Obi-Wan has to learn is that you can't just respect the status quo. Sometimes you have to take a side. Sometimes being the good guy means you have to fight the revolution in a way that, like, the Jedi, as the warrior monks overseen by the government, just never would do. To me, that's the thing that was always missing, is like, all right, and I think I've heard Ed say similar things, but like, if the Jedi were so wise and so skilled, like, you can't just say, well, they managed to shoot them all in the back, and that's how we got to the status quo of the Empire being in charge. Like, that kind of sucks. I think we need to make the failure of the Jedi more explicit. And to me, it's just as simple as, like, before Palpatine took over, the Jedi would never participate in an armed revolution. Like, it took that failure for Obi-Wan and Yoda as the last Jedis to be like, fuck, maybe we should have, like, risen up against the government, because the government turned out to be a bunch of fascistic assholes.
Well, look, here's the thing. I'm not here to defend what exists. I will say the whole point of the Clone Wars was to exhaust the force of the Jedi plus their dark side, so that getting shot in the back is the only way that's going to happen, is if they've been fighting for 5 years, draining every ounce of the force they have, while their enemy's sitting right there in the office and they can't even see it. Like, they say as much in Attack of the Clones, like, they're stupid because they're like, should we tell everyone that we can't see the force anymore? And Yoda's like, no, let's not do that yet. But for our purposes, yes, I kind of agree with, I like the idea of, like, you can't be a monk all the time. And I do like the idea of, like, in The Last Jedi, where Luke is like, Jedi, Sith, all of that stuff is vanity. If they all go away tomorrow, the Force still exists, you know?
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's take the Amidala. Let's map some of what Amidala is doing then, because we Ed is correct that we need to have Amidala being a badass. And what is her role in not only, you know, maybe the revolution or the rebellion that's going to be coming up, and what is her role with Anakin? What are we thinking?
I mean, I think to me, it's two things, and I'm not trying to push, but it's just clear in my head that, like, number one, Palpatine is not giving up power, and we're not going back to the status quo. And Amidala, as a senator, is one of the minority in the Senate going, why is this not happening? Which puts her on the same side as the Jedi, but because the Jedi are apolitical, they're not getting involved. She can actually be the one acting, you know, getting in people's faces and trying to question that. Like, why is this dude not giving up the Chancellor powers? Like, why are we still in this place?
Can
And then
can I interject a thought real quick just to
go
put
ahead.
a Zaslav in there just to get an action beat out of that? I know we're kind of doing the same thing as Attack of the Clones, so maybe there's a way around it, but it's like, could you have Din Djarin be hired to kill her just to, because she's stirring shit up, and that's when they realize, like, if we're going to do a rebellion, we got to keep this quiet.
Oh, like a teenage Din Djarin?
Or just I don't know how old he's supposed to.
No, I
I
mean,
guess he's pretty young.
he
at
did
this
just
point
say a
now, but-
Mandalorian. It could just be a
Mandalorian,
Mandalorian.
fine, whatever.
Sure.
Look, it's the same shit they did in Attack of the Clones almost to a T. But I'm just saying, like, for God's sakes, I love that she's like fighting in the Senate, but we got to give her an action scene. So,
well, what if what if she goes to try to recruit the Mandalorians? You know what I mean? Like, the Mandalorians are kind of this power that's outside the whole conflict because, they live by their own code or whatever. And what if she goes and tries to recruit them and they basically tell her to fuck off and try to kill her? And maybe it's like we get a chase scene out of that with her trying to escape Mandalore. And then who shows up to, avenge her and also reveal that they know what she's been doing, but Anakin.
Ooh.
Yeah, that'd be a nice put over of him fucking up some Mandalorian.
It's like Mufasa picking up Simba from those hyenas. Like, I told you not to fucking go there.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
you
get Anakin fucking up like a squad of Mandalorians.
Yeah,
that's a cool action scene too.
Yeah, and even I wouldn't be averse to tying all of that into the central. We're gonna overthrow the slave state scene. Like that big conflagration, all that shit's happening, so we can, see that, like, she's there, he's there, they're far away, but he's gonna be there to save her, Superman style. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
like, she's in the shit. And again, I just think it's one thing it's just revealing at the end of this big action scene where the heroes are heroing and everything's looking really cool, that they stopped the slave revolt. The people they've been chopping in half were slaves trying to get free. And that's what they were there for, and that's what they were sent to go do explicitly. And everybody else is chill. And he's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? That's awful. Because we do that all the time, dude. A lot of these interventions, we're killing people who are trying to be freed.
Wait, are you talking about the scene on Mandalore, or are you talking about the scene
I'm just talking about even getting some of all that shit together. The Mandalorians don't necessarily have to be on Mandalore. You know what I'm saying? There could be like this place where Mandalorians are a part of some mercenary group that's part of this coup, which is basically slaves getting their pennies together to pay some Mandalorians to come fuck up these dudes who are enslaving them or that help their revolution. And then again, the Jedi are called to come in and crush that. We need to call some people in to fuck up Mandalorians and these souped up slaves that want to get free. We got to smash this whole shit for this ruling party that's down with Sheev and them. So yeah, send our Jedi, who we have control of at this point, down there, and Anakin's part of that force, and Obi-Wan is, and they're heroing it up, but they're the bad guys supporting the bad guys, as it turns out. And maybe you find Padme there, and she was like part of the good guys. It's like, bitch, what you doing here? I'm with the good guys, and you're over there with the bad guys. But she's with the good guys, and that's like part of this frisson that starts.
Well, I like the idea of putting that scene in the middle of the movie, just because you can, if you put it in the middle of the movie, we can establish that, like, the bad guys are the stormtroopers. Whereas where even on worlds where the slaves have been freed, now it's like everybody becomes an indentured servant working in some manufacturing plant for the Empire to make whatever, whether it's to build the Death Star or what have. It's like where Anakin comes in, kills your ruling class because he thinks he's freeing the slaves, and then the squads of stormtroopers start landing so that they can rebuild your society as a vassal state to Palpatine. Like, to me, that's what's happening, right? And so when Amidala goes to visit Mandalore or some Mandalorian adjacent place, she's trying to be like, I need an army to take down the stormtroopers. And right now, that doesn't exist in the galaxy. And maybe the Mandalorians can be that. But if the Mandalorians are like, fuck you, we don't want any part of your skirmish, like, business is good right now, perhaps. Maybe even the Mandalorians are thriving because Sheev is paying them. Then it's like she has to escape. Anakin saves her. Then Anakin goes one step further and is like, you know what? I don't like how the fucking Mandalorians kidnap kids. Time to bust out the red lightsaber and start fucking those dudes up. You know what I mean? So to him,
Yeah.
it's just this indiscriminate, like, my morality is right, and I'm gonna fucking kill people if they go against it.
Right.
And I think
we're
that,
doing
I mean,
more
'cause
arresting murder. Yeah.
we know that by the end, or at least by episode 4, Padme's got to be dead, and those twins have to be hidden. I almost wonder if you do like
does Padme have to die?
she can't be alive by the time we start episode 4.
Okay. Yeah, fair. And she wouldn't be
Yeah,
hiding.
no.
so-
I mean, no.
you're right. You're right. She has to die.
They literally have a conversation with Return of the Jedi about, she's gone. But I almost wonder if, like, at some point, this like, angel of death Anakin is just like, you pull a Godfather 2 and be like, this whole time they knew that she was pregnant. She's like, I had an abortion, and that's what snaps with Anakin. But it turns out she's lying. She just doesn't want Anakin to ever, like, find out, and maybe that's what it is.
I mean, I kind of love the idea that if she's pregnant throughout this whole sequence, where it's like the Empire is just sort of softly occupying everywhere, Anakin's working as this covert angel of death, and the Jedi are like, something is up and nobody's doing anything about it, but we just can't quite bring ourselves to denounce the government we work for. Amidala's the one who's working behind the scenes, and then when she discovers, oh my God, Anakin, you've been the one who's essentially clearing the way for the stormtroopers to occupy all these other worlds, just essentially murdering the ruling class across the galaxy. From Anakin's point of view, that's a good thing. From her point of view, that's fucked up. And it's like, that then is the catalyst for their relationship to start crumbling. And it's like, she is no longer pregnant. Again, if we're doing a little bit of time jumping throughout the movie, it's like you get to a point where she's no longer pregnant, and we don't even see the birth of the twins, but she just lies and kind of sets everything up behind the scenes, almost off camera. And it's like, that could be like a last scene reveal. Like, no, those kids, she didn't abort those kids. She just hid them
or she
away.
had, like, she tells him she had a miscarriage, or I don't know, something.
Right.
Yeah, I have an idea of how she dies
Mhm.
that I think is interesting. So you know how we hate the idea of them killing a bunch of Jedi kids, right? So what if Anakin finds out that Palpatine's gonna bomb the Jedi temple? Not like go in and stab everybody. He's just gonna blow it up while the kids are there. And this is where we get to see that he still has a little bit of ounce of good. He's got that soft heart in his, that soft part in his heart for kids. And he tells Padme, and Padme goes in and doesn't escape and gets blown up while trying to save the kids. And she does save the couple of kids that actually still exist in the world, that exist in the Clone Wars cartoon and various other stories.
I do like the idea of, like, a little bit of his goodness still exists, because it gets called out a lot later on. Like, he can't fully shake it, and you can still kind of see it in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good one, Ron.
So it doesn't have to be that exactly, but something like that.
That style thing where she has a sacrifice, boom, and this thing about, like, if there was a year that he went to go do something, she could, like, totally gestate the kids and put them somewhere during that period, and he could miss that reasonably without being a fool, and we could actually get a little bit of them being like little, I don't know, whatever happened to them.
I mean,
to divide
dude,
them could be more
that's such a
dramatic.
great scene. They haven't seen each other because he's been off on these quests. He comes back, he's all mutilated and fucked.
Yeah.
She's no longer pregnant, and they're both like, "What happened to you?"
Yeah. Yep.
No, I love that. I think, Ron, I mean, there's something to be said for, like, him just telling her, like, the Jedi end today. The Jedi and their broken philosophies end today. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, the whatever, where there's going to be a final solution. And even if he doesn't tell her, like, you better go save those kids, she could put it together. Like, you wouldn't tell me this unless, you wanted me to do something about it. I don't know. I'm trying to envision how that would play out. Because I do
think
like
maybe
the
it's just
idea of
like-
her saving the last Jedi kids.
I think Palpatine knows that Anakin would tell her something like that and kind of hopes that she runs off to that temple to warn everybody and gets blown up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Another
then
one
he
of
gets
Palpatine's just sitting
Anakin
back
all
and-
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
That's-
never
what if-
wants Padme around. Yeah.
Okay, so what if there's a scene then where Anakin's missing 3 limbs, his face is all messed up, he's got to use a breathing apparatus, and he tells her that the Jedi are about to die. She goes to run out to go try to stop it. He tries to stop her, and she kicks his ass. And it's not
I like
just
that because the idea would be like, if it were me and I'm totally fucked up and everything, and it's like, why do you still care about them? Look what they did to me. Look what they've done to us all these years, and you still want to run out and save them, I
And
could see
then-
that as being a
Yeah, and it's like, so he has very clear, obvious vulnerabilities that she could, whether she pulls a Dark Knight Rises and punches him in his rebreather, or whether she attacks like his cyborg parts, he also still loves her enough that he's not going to fight back. So it's like she can get in enough blows to sort of incapacitate him. And so instead of him being a limbless husk yelling at Obi-Wan from the lava, it's like he's on the floor, half incapacitated, being like, Padme, come back. But she's running off to go save the Jedi, and she gets caught in whatever that,
And
the
also
first
she
version of the Death Star ray when they blow up the Jedi Temple.
could do some filthy stuff, like he's coming back and he's getting worked on, like in the middle of him being worked on, in the middle of him being in a bacta situation, she like throws the equivalent of a toaster in there to affect her escape. She knows he's not gonna die. He's beyond death. He's already dead. This is really bad, and I got to get away, and I got to get back to like save these kids, but I got to save these kids because I'm trying to save my kids. Like they're symbolic to her. You know what I'm saying? Like her running down to the temple because she's got kids out there. You know what I'm saying?
So
I think
I'll give you this.
Oh, go
So
ahead.
how about this one? So at this point, Anakin has discovered that she's been doing these covert missions, trying to rouse people against the Empire. And Anakin now has gone full controlling abusive spouse and has locked her in whatever their home is, right? So when she escapes to go try to save the kids, that's when Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, and Yoda show up to confront Anakin. And so now Anakin gets out of the bacta tank, recovering from his toaster wounds. He's been betrayed by Padme, so he's at the height of his anger, right? He's at the height of his rage.
Yeah.
And he proceeds to whoop ass on Obi-Wan, Mace, and Yoda as Palpatine blows up the Jedi and kills Padme in the process.
Yeah. Yep.
And honestly, wait, I think so.
Oh, that's
We
so
know
good.
from Rogue One that the Death Star rays are from Kyber crystal, which is also what lightsabers are made of. So I think that bombing is like a nuclear bomb in Coruscant. That's where they figure out it's because of all the Kyber crystals that were in there. And I think immediately Anakin feels something in the Force because Padme's there while they're fighting. And that's where he lets his guard down for 2 seconds, makes one mistake, and he gets fatally fucked by Obi-Wan, which is where he has to wear the rest of the garb, and Anakin is gone,
Right.
Yep.
And so in that fight, Mace Windu is killed gloriously.
Glorious.
Yoda perhaps is even gravely injured, which is why he ends up, fucking off. But it comes down to Obi-Wan and Anakin still. But yes, to your point, we're also losing all the Jedi in this giant, unprecedented nuclear explosion. Everybody feels it in the Force. Maybe that's what brings Yoda down, because he feels the Force more than anybody else. And so Anakin gets killed, but then Windu's dead or dying. Yoda is on the verge of death. Maybe even Obi-Wan is injured at this point. And before Obi-Wan can deliver a killing blow, or maybe he doesn't even want to deliver a killing blow to Anakin, it's like, oh God, we need to get back to Coruscant. Things are about to end. Things are about the Jedi's are about to end. And you almost end with now the husk of Anakin, as opposed to screaming, "I hate you," now he's laughing as they fly away. He's like half dead on the floor, and the bots are coming to scoop him up and drag him to the back to tank. But he's just laughing because he's fucking won.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. But he
He's
doesn't
won.
know. He doesn't know that his chick is dead.
Exactly.
And that thing there, he's got the real Uncle Ben going on. Like, oh man, yeah, that's tight.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then you could still have, like, you know, the denouement of the movie is essentially Palpatine comes to him and tells him, you know, she died. It was her last act of betrayal. She made it to Coruscant, which is what he wanted all along.
Yep.
But it's like, she made it to Coruscant. She freed some of the children, but she died in the blast. And maybe she didn't even die in the blast. Maybe that's the coup de grace where you see Palpatine kill her. You know, she makes it out with the kids, but
Dude,
Palpatine,
she makes it out with the kids. Dude, she makes it out with the kids. She's got 2 or 3 kids with her, and then she gets force lightning the fuck with the kids and everything.
Oh
She
my
dies.
god,
And like
dude.
she died, the kids die, and then as she's dying, he like says some last cold-blooded Ezekiel type shit to her, and then meow. Oh, dude, that's raw as fuck.
what if his last words to her are, "Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?"
And then he screams, "Ultimate power!"
That dude, that time he whispers it. He goes, "Ultimate power."
And then he just right
Oh,
into
dude,
her
you just see
face.
the lightning come out of the alley.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
this
dude.
giant burst of the James Cameron lightning coming out of the alley. I know it's George
Oh.
Lucas, but you know what I'm saying. It's James Cameron Terminator lightning coming out of
Hey,
the
this
alley.
shit was good, guys.
I mean, I feel like it's all coming together.
Are there any loose ends that we? So,
Where the
then
kids,
after that,
what we have to show
we-
where the kids are. I
so
think.
I would assume, you know, we know where the kids end up. One of them ends up with Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits, and then the other one has to end up with, you know, Baru and Lars on Tatooine. So
Theoretically dropped off by Obi-Wan. Or maybe not,
Which-
though.
no,
Maybe
but
Obi-Wan-
not necessarily. That's how it was before, but they
Right.
never expressly say Obi-Wan brought you here. You know,
Right.
all
right.
Obi-Wan ever says was you were kept hidden from your father.
Yeah.
So
He could
I mean,
show
maybe-
up there.
I was gonna say maybe that's like Obi-Wan learns that from Yoda. If Yoda, because he's failed all the Jedi are dead, the Jedi are persona non grata in the galaxy. Yoda is like, there's something you need to know that only Yoda knows, right? And so he's the one who tells Obi-Wan there are these 2 kids. One is with Bail Organa, whatever. And so that's Obi-Wan's last, similar to the current Revenge of the Sith. Like, Yoda goes off to Dagobah and Obi-Wan goes off to Tatooine.
I almost
And I
kind of
almost-
like it if Yoda like is like you need to hide, and then Obi-Wan's like, I can't do that. I don't think you should either. And it's almost just like, let's leave a little bit of conflict there since we know there's more story coming later. But make Obi-Wan going to Tatooine and basically not fucking changing his Jedi clothes so anyone could find him. Let's make it a choice. Like,
That's
no,
cool.
you know,
nice.
he's like, we can't hide if there is a hope that this could be, you know.
And that's where you bring it all around, where Obi-Wan can say to Yoda, we made a mistake from the start. We needed to join this revolution when it was still winnable. We needed to rise up before it even got to this point. I'm not going to hide now. That's the mistake we made. And Yoda's like, okay, go with God. Like, I don't agree with you, but whatever, man, go do your thing.
Right.
And then it helps convince him later why Yoda's not just like, oh, right, he's ready, let's train him, or where is he? You know, Yoda's at that, even as it stands currently, Yoda's like not even 100% sure that this plan of Luke is going to work. So I think that fits in perfectly of like, they're not on the same page when they split apart, you know?
That's great.
Yeah, I do like that.
I feel like this is all working. I mean, So do we want to talk how we're going to handle casting at this point? How we're going to handle, like, let's just say it, like Natalie Portman is now in her 40s. Hayden Christensen the same. Ewan McGregor, I feel like, could still play, sort of a nondescript middle age. I don't know if we could just have the same cast with some de-aging for everything. I kind of feel like we would have to, but I don't.
But here's the thing: the way that we've written this story, like, you almost don't have to de-age because
that's
your
true.
Anakin's going to start to. Yeah, you want to see him weathered. And honestly, I know this is unpopular, but like, I think Hayden Christensen can act. He just wasn't given a chance to, because we've seen him turn it around with what he's done in the past few years. So I'm more inclined to not recast those main roles. And then maybe like either recast or add any, like, Grogu or whatever Mandalorian we end up with.
As I'm thinking about this, I mean, I think one of the things that this movie could do is also give Hayden Christensen almost an in-universe reason to drop a lot of that weird stoic affect he was playing, where it's like, that was him as a young man sort of cosplaying a stoic, in charge Jedi. But like, let's challenge Hayden Christensen. Like, dude, stop doing that shtick. Like, be a person as we get deeper into your age. And I feel like that might free him up a little bit too. So it's like, all right, I don't have to play like an old serial, villain or hero. I can be more of a nuanced actor.
As far as tone, we're heading into Rogue Oneville, and I am not the world's biggest Rogue One fan, but I think the quote unquote naturalism, it's almost, there was a Brandoizing of the Star Wars universe in Rogue One. I don't think without Rogue One you get Andor. I don't think people would think of it as like, if you take this seriously, you take these people's lives seriously, and without doing ninja flips all over the place and light up swords, if you take these people's lives seriously, the way that they interact with each other, it's naturalistic, it's soldier-like, it's at least as naturalistic as any military movies we have. So yeah, I think that would be a good way to do this one. It isn't quite as operatic, but it gets operatic. It has a utilitarian feel that gets more and more operatic as it goes along, and at the end, it's full on,
look at our fight scenes. Our fight scenes have reasons behind every single one of them.
Yeah.
There's and important reasons like that matter to those characters. And it's not just some cool jumping around flippity flip. It's I'm fighting to save people, or I'm fighting for things that I believe in.
But also, if we're conquering worlds with the Empire, we're now also using this movie to change aesthetics from the very clean, pristine episodes 1 and 2 into the dirtier 4, 5, 6,
Yeah. And we're having more time to do it, because Bill, when you first started kicking that shit, Bill, I was like, bro, this dude's on mescaline. Like, we're gonna but why can't we? If you do give those years, give a decade and a half even, to weather the people, to push it out a little bit, then those kids come. There's a reason why they don't know anything about anything, and everything has been lost. You can't lose something that quick. But in the way that these worlds are moving, much like ours, we can buy a new status quo. Give me about 15 years. 15 years from now,
that's 100%
from now. Yeah.
And to me, I think that's the thing that I never got, is like, at what point did the clone troopers go from arriving as liberators to becoming oppressors? And I think even Andor is doing the work of showing like what the oppression feels like. But to me, there just was never a period of time where that could have happened, right? Where it went from, we're here to save the day and we're battling the separatists, to now we're an occupying Gestapo. And I feel like that's what these little time jumps that we're building into this movie do, where it's like at the beginning of the movie, we're at the tail end of these guys being liberators. And the deeper we go into the movie, the more we understand, like, oh no, once they've showed up, they don't leave. In fact, more and more of them keep coming, and everything starts to change. And even the good changes start to get corrupted. And it's just that creeping fascism that feels so insidious. I think that's what this movie does.
Perfect.
So let's, I guess, talk about director. I mean, at this point, I don't think it's going to be George. I
An
guess
AI of George Lucas. Get Zaslav on the phone.
but really, like,
kidding.
I mean, who would? I feel like the hack easy answer that I just want to discard immediately would be Denis Villeneuve, who I think has proven that he could handle the kind of like scale and gravitas while keeping things naturalistic. But we can't just see a new version of Dune. I don't think he would even want to do, hey, give us the name brand big corporate version of Dune.
I mean, the easy is Jean Favreau. That's the easy, isn't it?
I don't know.
think he could. I mean, Tony Gilroy would be more in line, just from if you're picking from the Star Wars playbook, it's like tying in his own thing. But again, like that's kind of the boring answer that you almost want to throw out on technicality,
Yeah.
It's like I want to come up with somebody who could really guide Hayden Christensen into like as raw a performance as possible. You know what I mean? It's like I want to feel the righteousness and the anger, and it's like that's the thing that Revenge of the Sith I think really let us down with, is just we didn't track or sell Hayden Christensen's turn in a way that you bought into. And I feel like that's the type of director that we need for this movie.
Okay, so he's not a special effects guy, which could kill this. But if we're just talking about performance, the minute you said that, I was like, oh man, who directed Marriage Story with Adam Driver? It was Noah Baumbach. And I was like, I mean, at least for the acting part, you would really nail that drama. I don't know how he would handle visual effects.
How about him and Christopher Nolan?
Okay, if we're gonna number one, no. I'm sorry, no. Look, this one is just as ridiculous, but I think somebody more in this line. Look, this is an opportunity for a great artist to come in and put their stamp on one of the biggest brands in the world. But we need to put it in the hand of somebody who knows how to manage a big ass brand like that. I'm sorry. They need to have experience in doing that. I'm not wasting more time on these freaking mumblecore assholes bringing that bullshit aesthetic to these beautiful things that are not quite art. No thanks. Ryan Coogler, $1 billion ass movie shit, all this oppressive slave jazz. Let's put a hat on a hat, buddy. Fuck it.
Sure.
And also the revolution jazz, really supporting the revolutionary aspect of Star Wars rather than the status quo. I think it would shake a lot of things up. And I think Rick Famuyiwa will be looking at us like, motherfucker, I'm right here. I was doing Mandalorians the last 10 years so that you could overlook me for Coogler because I don't have a cool accent. Fuck you. You know,
but either of those guys.
Yeah,
right.
I just think that would be interesting. I'm just throwing especially Coogler in there because honestly, original, you can't say he can't do original jazz. You can't say he can't manage a brand. He does, and I think him throwing a little bit of originality into this and the story that we're giving him is, I think, something that he would be interested in. I'm just saying I'm proud of us for that. This isn't some plastic Barbie, not that Barbie was this, some plastic toy shit. This isn't toy shit. These are really cool overarching themes of like liberation and the most powerful of us turning a blind eye to oppression equals evil. And that's why your ass got fucked up. And that's why y'all all died. And that's why y'all lost. You know what I'm saying? I want to pound that home. That's really good.
By the way, I don't think he's the right one, but I don't think Nolan was like a dumb choice. Like,
no, it's not dumb. He just gets everything.
Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar mixed together, you know?
Dark Knight Rises ruined it, but I was almost there.
No,
but like,
I'm saying with the whole like revolutionary aspect plus Interstellar with the space aspect.
The Interstellar part, honestly, is what it is. I just feel like his rendition of boots on the ground fighting is found wanting for me.
Well, the problem is Nolan would want to rewrite it himself and do something completely different. So I don't want to give.
And I've got one problem with our whole pitch, though, guys.
This outline, or any of these guys we talked about, Denis Villeneuve, if we gave them this outline, they would make something tight.
Yeah, they would. They actually would. They 100% would. But I do have one problem with our whole pitch, you guys. We're not going to be able to have the Mustafar toy where Anakin's limbs pop off.
I have that on my wall right now.
I know it exists. I know it exists.
Battle damaged. It's called Battle Damaged Anakin Skywalker. I'm like, that's putting it so lightly.
Insane.
Battle damage. Motherfucker, his arms come off, his legs come off.
Dude, but look at this, guys. We are actually fulfilling the mandate because the toyeticism of having multiple places. There's Mustafar. There's the Wookiee planet where he lost his other arm. There's this. There's that. He got run through the stomach in whatever the hell, Ovania.
The sea
all
planet.
the different sets of all the different injuries that he got. Those are like he's regular except for that wound. He's regular except for this new wound, and then they're getting worse and worse. You got to collect them all. You got to collect the entire. What's that shit? Stations of the Cross. You gotta collect the entire Stations of the Cross of Anakin.
Not that this really matters, but like, do Anakin and Padme live in his castle that we see later on?
I mean, to me, I think yes. I think that whole scene where it's like she's now been essentially like house arrested by him, and she needs to escape by sabotaging the Bacta tank. That has to take place on Mustafar. Which
that's hard.
In the castle.
Yeah,
I mean,
that castle. That's a set for this. I love that castle, man. That going back and forth to that castle, pretending that you're like a good guy.
I mean, dude, you could even
now is way cooler because before it's like I go to where my pain started, but now it's like only someone who is so above the status quo would live on a planet with fire all around them, like, because I can, because I'm so amazing that nothing will happen to me.
Well, I was gonna say, what if one of the first planets we see him, quote unquote, liberating after our time jump is Mustafar, right? So it's like,
right,
he's there, he kills the ruling class, whatever, but it's a very sparsely populated planet, and he's like, no, I'm going to make these people my subjects, and they're going to know that I was the one who freed them from whatever oppressive, it's like everybody worked in mines, and he's like, now you can come out of the mines, but when they come out of the mines, the lava starts flowing. I don't know, just there's something.
I bet you a lot of those people that he liberates end up becoming the stormtroopers that we see later on.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
dude, I love that way more than any sort of this clone jazz and stuff, because eventually we know that in the future these people are conscripted soldier people who make decisions to do this, and they're not all clones anymore. We know there's a transition. We're seeing it. We're seeing exactly where those
the clones die.
Well,
at a certain age anyway.
Replaced them. The early people that replaced them though are like, for lack of a better term, the Irish or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just like
it's the irony of it, right? He's liberating these slaves and then putting them right back under their thumb.
But that's what certain societies are from a certain point of view.
I mean, I think that is the scene with the Daisy Ridley, progenitor character, whatever we want to call it, where maybe Amidala, maybe Mace Windu, maybe both of them, whatever, rescue her, or like we say, just help her along on a stopover point of being a refugee. And she's the one that says, like, if you refuse to become a stormtrooper, they do something even more horrible, and that's where they take you and start doing the experiments. And it's like, they collected our blood. I don't know why. Like, you either join up with the army or you become a lab rat. And it's like,
what's your name? She's like, my name's Daisy Snoke, and you're like, oh shit, okay,
love that.
Nice.
Well, geez, I mean, at this point, I don't know, do we want to call it for the first time in the new season?
Yeah, I think we do.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have achieved reboots. Hold on to your butts, because we are, for some goddamn reason, don't tell David Zaslav we said it, rebooting only episode 3 of the prequels, and somehow we've made it work. We're opening with the last battle of the Clone Wars, getting that shit out of the way early. We're establishing that the Jedi do not interfere in the status quo. Anakin Skywalker wants to. He's going to try to free the slaves, and both the Jedi and the Stormtroopers are going to be like, whoa, buddy, slow your roll, to the point where the Jedi are even like, we don't get involved in politics. You're expunged. Go live with your illegal wife and have a nice life, but you're no longer a Jedi. We boop, 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 pop ourselves forward. Now we are years later. Both Anakin and Amidala are living separate, not separate lives, but both secret lives, which is straining their relationship as they're both ping-ponging across the galaxy. When Amidala is with the Senate, Anakin's off doing his own thing, which we eventually reveal is he's liberating planets, but in Palpatine's mind, he's essentially just clearing the way for the Stormtroopers to move in and bring them into the Empire. They can script the people into the Stormtrooper army, and if they don't want to join, they're going to turn them into lab rats. Meanwhile, Amidala is working with some of the Jedi, like Mace Windu, trying to figure out why is it that Palpatine is still in power and the rule of the galaxy is not reverted to the Republic. At some point, she goes to try to recruit Mandalorians, probably after her encounter with Daisy Ridley, where she learns all the nasty shit that's going on as the Empire tightens its grip. But she goes to try to recruit Mandalorians to become part of the counterinsurgency. She ends up being chased by the Mandalorians and has to fight them off, but is ultimately saved by Anakin, who is revealed to be planet hopping, and we see him every time we check in with him. He's getting more and more messed up, becoming more and more Vader. There's almost a four-way, see if I can keep this straight in my head, almost a four-way conflict that develops through the middle of the movie where Anakin is doing his own thing at the behest of Palpatine. He thinks he's liberating worlds, but as the Empire is taking control, they're consolidating power. The Jedi are both looking into who is this person that's murdering Jedi on these distant worlds, clearing the way for the clampdown. And then the Jedi are also working with Amidala, trying to figure out if they should or should not overthrow Palpatine. At the end of the day, it's all too late. Palpatine makes his final move to kill all the Jedi at the Jedi Temple. Anakin is betrayed by Padme, who sabotages the bacta tank, flees their home, tries to go save kids. Meanwhile, some of the last remaining senior Jedis show up to confront Anakin. We get a big Proto Vader versus Mace Windu, Yoda, and Obi-Wan fight. We get Padme rescuing Jedi children just in time, only to be intercepted by Sheev himself, who force blasts her to oblivion. And at the end of the movie, we find out that her pregnancy, which we had seen develop, and then she had confessed to Anakin that she got rid of the children, further driving a rift between them. It was all a ruse. She gave birth to twins, and she put them in hiding. And we end the movie on the final conflict between Yoda and Obi-Wan, where Yoda tells Obi-Wan, we need to hide, we need to go away, we need to wait this out. And Obi-Wan says, no, screw you, we need to join the revolution. That was our problem in the first place. We didn't step up when we had the chance. Whew! I think that's everything. That is the reboot. We're saying that because we're dealing with these time jumps, we can actually use most of the same original actors and let them play their age, let them play it more naturalistic. We are going to use as our director, help me out, guys, who am I forgetting? Who do we say?
Coogler.
Ryan Coogler, which is a wonderful choice, kind of dropping somewhere between the tone of Andor and a big space opera, more in the style of the original prequels. I think he could do a great job. And we have roles per David Zaslav for not just one, but many Mandalorians, a Grogu teen Yoda, and Daisy Ridley playing a young Snoke girl who was experimented on by the Stormtroopers after her planet was quote unquote liberated. Woo! Guys, we're back in the saddle.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what a way to
that
do
would
it.
have been the hardest but most rewarding one we've done yet.
I feel
Seriously.
like we found some gold in here that is a very different movie than what we got, and dare I say, perhaps works better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key contributions with the timeline and with this more revolutionary bent to the story and having a longer time of being a revolutionary movie, I think those were the big masterstrokes that helped a lot of the other stuff happen.
Yeah, and making Anakin like deadly, and it creates a reason for you to fear him. I think at the end.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
Ron, you kicked it off saying like, okay, dude, why doesn't Anakin just kill all the Jedi? I was like, look at the big balls on Brad. That's great stuff. Because that's right, and it makes him what we need him to be in Rogue One and subsequent things. It makes him be what we need him to be. Great stuff, dude.
yeah, everybody killed it.
Yeah, this was a great melding of the minds. And well, if this is your first time watching Reboot It, this is the sort of thing we do. If you are a fan from way back when, we are back, baby. Whole new season of Reboot It. We've got some wild reboots coming up. It's going to be the same Reboot Crew you love with a whole new flavor. And we couldn't be more excited. I'm glad to be back, guys, aren't you?
Feels good. 3 years was too long. Sorry about that.
Hey, what can you do?
Well, that's how long it took us to get another job in development. So.
It's true.
That's
it's
right.
back here in California, man. So,
and
get what you
listen,
get.
we could be just weeks away from David Zaslav selling Warner Brothers to either some other studio or Procter and Gamble. Who knows? So we'll see how long this job lasts.
That's right.
But in the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And if not, just come back and see us again. We're going to do this weekly. I am producer Bill. That is Billy Business. That is Ed Greer. And down in the corner is Ron Swallow. We're the Reboot Crew, and we will see you next time.